When I graduated college with my occupational therapy license degree and on to get my license, I planned to move somewhere new and fresh. And I had a fellow student in my class who said, "You can't do that. You can't just move right after you graduate." I can't remember the other things that she had said behind it. We had moved so much as a child that I didn't see any reason to not start my new life with a new job in a new city. I just remember her saying, "You just can't do that." And I remember thinking, why can't I just do that? At the time, because I was a college graduate, I got a car with a deferment. I didn't have to make my first loan payment for like 3 months. As far as, I was able to get a lease because of I had a proof of a job and all these other things that needed to be in place to up and move 600 miles from home where my parents lived. And so I didn't see it as an obstacle. I also had come from living in a college dorm for 4 years where people are there and you knock on people's door and an instant social life. And I'm distracted because Don's moving the cat. The act of you moving the cat was more distracting than the cat itself. And so I moved from college life to an apartment in a brand new city on my own. And I remember thinking that people would just knock on my door and introduce themselves. And I gave myself a week before I started my job, so I had time to move in. And I actually had some contact information when I interviewed at the job. I had gotten names. There were other therapists who were new to Charlotte, who were relatively, fresh out of college themselves. And yet I didn't reach out to them. And my sister's, I was adopting cats that were kittens from her friend. And she's like, "Let me give you a week to get settled before I bring them down." So I was in this apartment alone by myself, not going to work, didn't even have the cats to keep me company. And I expected people to just knock on my door and introduce themselves to me. And it was lonely. And so moving somewhere new felt like the easy part. And then I got there and I'm like, oh, the reality of adult life is different than college life. Yeah. And here I am with this week to not work, to get settled. But I probably would have been better starting work right away. I remember it being a difficult week. It's hard looking back on it 30 plus years later, like, oh, a week in an apartment alone with no one to take care of? That sounds blissful. But I'm a mom of 3 kids now.
Now, yeah, I was going to say,
very different.
Moments by yourself are tough.
But at 23, brand new city, fresh out of college is a wonderful transition to adulthood, in that it's this, you didn't live away on campus at college. No. I know when you went, and it's like this pseudo reality that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so that was a big transition for me, and stepping out of my comfort zone and kind of that hard reality of things are different in the real world, and the adjustment of that process.
Well, hello, this is Don.
And this is Gina.
With Focused Healthy Family. And today is podcast number 82. And we're talking about the both sides of comfort zone, the
stepping out of the comfort zone,
and the downside of it, I guess you'd say. And just talking about that, we stepped out of comfort zone here, moving in, which we've talked about quite a bit. But before we get too far into it, let's take a moment to hear a word from our sponsor.
Our sponsor is Q Sciences. I've been a representative for Q Sciences for over a year. I found this company through a friend and did some research and reading about these products. And I really liked what I found when I learned about them. The research and time that they've put into the quality of these products to be better absorbed into the body. Things like the vitamin D spray. Our youngest was on a capsule vitamin D, and yet vitamin D levels remained the same with follow-up checkups. And with the spray, it increased.
Pretty strong.
Almost double.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking her levels were maybe 20, and I think I want to say they went up to 47 or something around that range. And the sleep spray is another great one. It's got melatonin, 5-HTP, and I believe another herbal supplement in there. And because it's a spray, you spray it on your tongue, it gets absorbed more quickly into your body to be more effective to help you in the moment. We're using the B12 spray. We've used the vitamin C spray. They have a Q Max product, which is a multivitamin.
And they also have the CBD, different, a variety of different.
It's full spectrum
full
hemp
spectrum, yes.
oils. They even have a THC free version. It comes in different flavors. There is a mushroom
Oh yeah.
armor. It's called Q Armor. It's a powder, and I get the chai flavor. Put it in my chai tea for a double chai drink.
So instead of, as they say, flushing your supplements down, well, the toilet or the drain, you want to get something like this that's fully absorbed. It's like flushing money down the toilet too, if you're not using a supplement that absorbs well and does well for your body. So that's what Q Science is really about. It's a good, well absorbed, high nutrient product.
They have multiple products. They have child specific products. They now also have some facial cream products. I've been using a night cream to minimize the effects of sunlight and stress and aging on my skin. And they have a hemp lotion. That's also a wonderful product that we've tried. So check us out, learn more. You can find the link at our website,
www.focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can also go to focusedhealthyfamily.com/Q Sciences, the letter Q and Sciences.
with an S at the end.
With the S at the end, yes.
So comfort zone. I think about all these books I've read, philosophical, self-help kind of books. It's important to step out of your comfort zone. That's where you grow, is outside of your comfort zone. So on the flip side, I think there's part of my brain that associates the comfort zone with not
negative, or
and my depression lands in my comfort zone maybe, and just thinking about how important it is to take steps out of your comfort zone. And moving into a new house 35 miles from where we used to live, with a new commute into work, and everything's different in this house and where to put things and finding things. And I'm realizing, okay, the comfort zone has its benefits. I was realizing with my depression, I was so much in my comfort zone. I worked at the same job for a while. Things in the house were the way they were.
Kind of routine.
It was easy. It was easy to disappear. And so the push to do things different helps you grow. And also, it can leave you more scattered feeling. The simple act of getting ready in the morning, when you have a routine and you know where everything is.
Where is my hairbrush?
Where is my hairbrush? I have lots of hair and I lost my hairbrush. Literally, I lost my hairbrush.
It's packed, in other words, somewhere.
No, we had it at my mom's.
Oh.
It exists somewhere in between Indian Land and Salisbury. So it takes more energy and more time to do things, because like you keep walking up the steps to go to our bedroom, and our bedroom's not up the steps. Our bedroom's around the corner.
But it's not now.
And things are in boxes, and we move in, but yet I needed to go to work. So
there's a benefit of productivity enhancement when you talk about comfort zone, because you've got a routine, you do it, and you get done quicker with it. Versus, so that's what I would think would be kind of a benefit of having.
It's not
comfort zone.
It's not like comfort zone and non-comfort zone is good and bad. I guess and if you step out of your comfort zone in more than one way all at once,
it's overwhelming.
It's a lot. I went to work at a new building, which I had the comfort of, I had worked at that building in the past for a different company when the assisted living was owned by someone different. So at least I had been to the property and within the walls of it. Yet it was a new rehab manager, and my drive there was completely different. I went on roads, as long as I've lived in the Charlotte area, I went on roads I hadn't been on before because I've never traveled from Salisbury to Mooresville. And so all of that while moving in, it adds stress to our brain when we have all those challenges and all those new and different things. My great friend Helen talks about moving, about things that cause stress in our life, and moving, starting a new job,
having children,
family trauma, all these things that add stress to us, that increases anxiety. And when you have more than one at once, it's
overwhelming,
can be overwhelming and add additional anxiety. And so having some comforts, like my chai tea in the morning, and that morning that I went to work at the new job, we'd been 2 nights in this house, and I ran out of chai tea, and I started my day without my chai tea. And yes, there's a little caffeine in tea, so part of it is that always having that, but I felt off. And it's like that little comfort, that familiarity kind of helps ground me in some respects of being able to go about my day and doing things.
Well, I'm thinking too about Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks. And she actually promotes the idea of the road less traveled.
Mm-hmm.
But going onto the road that's familiar. I'm trying now my mind is not putting it together correctly, but it's kind of the reverse idea of what people talk about, is taking the road less traveled is where you grow and expand.
Right, like
but
the stepping out of the comfort zone.
She talks about going on the road traveled, or kind of this almost kind of like the comfort zone idea, staying in your comfort zone. I'll have to look it up.
Now you got me really curious about that.
Yeah.
What does she say about it? I mean, it's like when people think of, I need a fresh start. I need something new. Like when I talked about moving to Charlotte, I needed a fresh start. I needed a new start. And yet, are we running away from things?
Well, I think that's probably the direction is
facing what's here and now. And
you're still focused. You can't run away from your internal stuff, but you try, and you think that a new start, a fresh road, or whatever is going to be the thing that's going to do it. And it probably can help, but you have to do the inner work yourself.
I had a very powerful moment when I moved to Charlotte on my own, and I had left a relationship I had been in. Our new table is on wheels, so we're going in and out. I had left a long-term relationship. I was kind of nearly engaged and broken up that, and then I moved out on my own, and I really very much. Why are you staring at the ceiling?
I'm looking at the cat. Looks like digging a door up there. I closed it. My daughter's door, but anyway, they've been digging a lot.
We're very distracted.
Sorry, go ahead. You were talking about.
I know, it's just your distractions distracted my thoughts. We're out of our comfort zone. We are not in our studio in the basement where we used to record at our Cumberland house, our former house. We had to stop ourselves from saying where we live, realizing we don't live there anymore. So we're now referring to it as our Cumberland house. You said something about remember where we used to live, and I'm like, which used to live? Now we've got 2 houses that we lived in together. I've totally lost my train of thought.
You were talking about your breaking up with your boyfriend.
So I moved to Charlotte on my own, and I always pictured myself married. My mom became a teacher. She got married, and she had kids, and she didn't work for a while raising the kids. And then she went back to, she was a substitute teacher. And as we got older, she did more teaching. So I just always imagined that my life would look like that. And I mean, I fell in love with the field of occupational therapy, and yet becoming a mom was kind of always my dream. And so having a relationship and being married was part of that. And so I'm in this new city by myself and wanting to meet someone. And I picture myself in my apartment, my mantle, and thinking, I've got to be happy with who I am and myself before someone will come along in my life. And now that seems like so simple to me, but at 23, it was a powerful revelation. I had done some self-help kind of work at that point, but not to the extent that I have since that time.
Well, did I catch you too early then? Did I get you?
No, catch me too early.
Well, I mean,
catch me too early.
well, I mean, did I?
I'm not a fish in the water that wasn't full size grown yet.
You're a fighter.
No, I was wanting a relationship so much that I knew I had to let go of that. I knew I had to be happy with myself and who I was before I attracted that into my life.
Well, I've just
and then I met you shortly after.
That's what I meant is what, you know, were you in that place when I met you? Like,
no, I think we should divorce and I should start over.
Okay.
No, that's exactly my
a good divorce lawyer.
Point, Don.
We have some on that.
Is that I became comfortable with myself and I met you, and I didn't think you were it when I met you.
Yeah, no. Just be friends. That's another whole story.
So accepting where we're at, accepting the challenges that we have, not trying to run away from them. And yet when we're feeling stuck in a rut, it can help to shift energies, to do things. What did they say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
No, it's not doing the same thing. It's doing something different. Oh, I know.
It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
I'll get it.
Bear with us. We have moving brain.
So that's kind of going back to comfort zone.
So shifting gears, it can be helpful to move some furniture in a room, to put up a new picture, something little.
Unless you're blind, don't do it if you're blind, because then you run into things.
That's a whole nother story, and that's an important thing if you're talking about environmental modifications for someone with low
environmental modifications.
With someone with low vision.
Big words on.
I'm feeling a little patronized.
Oh, sorry.
So Gina, you're feeling a little patronized.
I use my communications.
Yes, this is an opportunity.
So you're feeling like you're feeling patronized.
Yeah, I'm trying to have a conversation about these ideas.
Yes.
And you're making so many jokes, I can't keep my thoughts straight.
Sorry. I apologize.
And I'm anxious because you told me that our downloads of our podcast went down and we were worried it was because we were talking about the house too much. So I'm trying to make sure we have coherent thoughts.
And I'm messing that up.
Well, you're distracting me. And I'm used to, when we used to podcast, we were in our basement and there was a wall here and we were looking at each other. Right now I'm staring at my whole house.
Well, our goal is to do this differently.
Kitchen. So I don't know. I'd have a different sense of focus right now.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, there's a lot to distract here.
It's different.
Yes.
We have yet to set ourselves up for this. And we have different things on our mind that are pulling from our focus as we're getting into a new routine and establishing new comfort zones.
Yeah.
And finding ways that we can have little pieces of comfort. Our youngest, who's living with us, had some real moments of stress with this move, and like she really needed to set her room up. And it's like, yeah, of course we needed to do that for her because all the uncertainty down here is hard on anyone, but especially a teenager and especially someone with an anxiety disorder who's already got all that internal stuff going on, and now her environment is all turned upside down. And so just getting her room set up and her bathroom with the towel bars makes, a big difference to her. And of course it does, and we need to honor and respect that. And it frustrated us though, because we're looking around, we don't know where our pots and pans are, and she's like, I need to put shelves up on my wall, and we're like, we've got bigger problems. Yet we need to honor that for her, having her space organized in a way that felt comfortable to her and where she could access things was really going to help her own sense of internal struggle. And
I think on the kind of benefit side of that is that's exposure, which does help her in some ways. Being,
Well, yeah,
being exposed
stepping
to
outside of
this
your
change and all
comfort
of that.
zone. Yeah. So exposure response prevention therapy, which is the standard of treatment for obsessive compulsive disorder, is gently exposing yourself to things that stress you, because when you have OCD, your brain goes, oh my God, this is a super dangerous situation, when it's not really. And that is true with other anxieties as well. And yet you overloading yourself with
that was
too much of
too
it
much.
is not
needs
how
to be a
you
little
do
slower.
ERP therapy. You do it slowly and methodically, and you start with something that's a lesser stress. Yet all of us with anxiety, if we avoid everything that brings us anxiety, that doesn't help us get through it. That leaves us stuck and avoiding.
Well, and as we speak about our middle child, what she's going through right now, and just finding out that her job is going away in January and having to deal with that is very stressful for her. Yet it's also, I've always believed that you have to be at least fired once in your life to really gain your.
Well, and she's not being fired.
Not fired, yeah.
Well,
No, but I mean, to lose a job
change.
Kind of, it helps you kind of grow in your business world or employee job world and all that. Like I said, I've been fired in my job, and somebody sat down with me. I remember this. It was actually a lady at the hospital, one of the hospitals in Charlotte, that I became friends with as I would call on her, and I got fired from this job, and she called me and asked me to come in. She sat me down. She said, well, I'm trying to remember how she worded it, but she said, you just made a milestone in your career by being fired. And I went, what? And she said, well, I think you get a whole different sense about your life, about job, all of that, by having that situation, that experience
going through it.
So it threw me way out of my comfort zone. I mean, my gosh, I was unemployed, had just, I hadn't been in that house.
You had bought a house, moved out from an apartment because you were young. You were mid-20s.
Yeah, it was in 90, I think, or 91. So it was just, so all these experiences, like I said, it threw me so far out of comfort zone, but it realized it was overwhelming, but it drew me to a better place. Each thing drew me to a better place. Each experiences like that drew me to a better place over time. Just it takes time to get there. Like we'll eventually get comfortable here, and then maybe something comes along 20 years that wants us to move again or something like that.
Or it's not just about the comfortable in this house, but with routines and with things going on. Please don't talk about moving right now.
No.
We like this house because most things are on one level. The extra bedrooms and extra bathroom are upstairs. So in theory, we don't have to go up and down a lot. Yet there are steps to get into the house. So after the moving, it's like, once we get all this stuff in here, it's gonna stay.
Well, we also that we have everything within about 5 miles of us, all the pretty major stuff we like to go to or do.
Even though we're further from Charlotte, and I've had a 40-minute drive on the weekends compared to my prior commute was 15 to 20 minutes on back roads, easy back road driving. Now I'm on highway, and it was 40 minutes on the weekend, and I worked yesterday, was Monday, and it was more like 50 minutes with a little bit heavier traffic. And so it's different. I felt tired after driving that far.
Yeah, mine's an hour, too. So.
And yet, where we are now, in this wonderful town of Salisbury, it has like lots of things that we need. Stores we need to go to that are even closer than where we lived before, which is part of the reason, we like this house, but we also like the location of it.
Yeah. So it's I guess
pros and cons and finding comfort in new things And, looking at, like you're talking about with getting fired and just the process that you went through with that, you learned so much through the process of it. And so she called you up to give you that insight about it. Because in the moment you're like, oh my God, I've been fired. I don't have any money. I got this house. How am I going to pay these bills? Right. All those things I'm sure went through your mind.
I was telling Lexi the other day, I used to, Wendy's used to have the dollar, and I used to get a baked potato and a salad. It was like $2.20 or something like that. And that was one of my meals I would eat.
You were budgeting because you were living on very
limited. Well, I got a job, but it was a commission kind of job. And so commissions were like this. That was just, in 1 month I'd have this, but then the next month would eat it all away.
You were selling communication devices. You were selling early cell phones in the early 90s and two-way radios. So, but you didn't have to
comfort zone too. I went on commission before I was being paid.
I'm just realizing that when you went out on your own and left your job to start your own business, it was back to that world of the uncertain income. And you had that experience in that past, even though you were single, with no family.
And one thing we'll talk probably another, but it's about the unknown and how important the unknown can be for us in learning and questioning and all of that.
Learning and questioning and all of that.
Well, if the unknown, like I said, I want to go through another podcast talking about it, but I have a lot of patients that I work with, and a lot of them have this need to know the unknown. It drives their anxiety. And as I think about it, it's something that we need the unknown to question things, to grow and to move forward. So because we can't know everything. It's kind of like Esther Hicks talks about, would you want all the food you could ever eat now? You can't eat it all, and you don't want to, it'd be too overwhelming. Well, the same thing. If you knew everything now, it wouldn't be any fun for one, and it would be overwhelming.
I'm hearing Neil Donald Walsh in my head from Conversations with God about life as the process of discovery.
Yeah.
And discovering as you go.
So the coming out of your comfort zone goes into the unknown, and can be scary, but also it can be very beneficial. It can help you to grow and expand in your life.
So I want to kind of wrap up some takeaways for this with how this applies to raising kids, juggling, caring for yourself, your children, your aging parents. So we've already talked about with our kids, recognizing that their struggles are real. And even though we think, oh my God, we have such bigger things than where your shelves are going to go on your wall, to them, that is important. And to diminish what is important to them is to diminish them as a person. They are not a full-grown adult yet. They do not have the responsibilities that we do as parents. And if we are constantly saying, you think you have it bad, we got all this stuff to worry about, and you're griping on me about having a costume and for a party and figuring that out, we're diminishing their sense of themselves and who they are, because that is their life right now. You don't need to be responsible for a whole family and a household when you're 14 years old.
Yeah, that's true. And
putting that message out there is not helpful to them. It's not helpful to us.
Telling them they're not important, everything else is important.
And realizing that when we see our kids having anxiety, well, what's going on around them that is adding to that anxiety? So, no, bring the cat to me.
It's afraid to go past me.
Having a cat in my lap reduces my anxiety, but she's now afraid of you. So recognizing those things, I almost elbowed you. Stop it. Stay on topic. I have enough distraction in my head. Recognizing those things and realizing, okay, get set up. She's got so much internal struggle. Recognizing for myself too, with my own anxiety and issues I deal with personally, that what is it that helps me out? And I realized, we wanted to get the kitchen set up so that we could cook. And I'd go in the bathroom. I'm like, okay, I need to organize this because this will bring a sense of comfort when I'm getting ready to go to work. If I know we got, if that would help me as my morning routine to be able to go to work and feel more sense of comfort, then I need to make that a priority. And I need to, before we moved, I had a book I created with all the things that needed to be done, and it helped me to look at it and to be able to cross things off and to know I accomplished things, and to also better organize my time, because when you're in a position where you have so much to do, you've just moved, or even just kids in school now, and you're juggling everybody's different responsibilities without some semblance of planning, we just wind up jumping from one thing to another and not living with as much intention of what's important. And it's important to take care of ourselves, because if we don't, we can't take care of those around us. So as a caregiver, worrying about my dad and helping my mom, we stayed with them for a week before we closed and before we got moved in. And, my dad deals with advanced dementia, and my mom's his primary caregiver, and being involved in getting the care that they need and helping my mom to manage things. And then our daughter, and dealing with the move, and our other daughter who's going to be moving back home. And realizing I'm juggling all these different roles. How am I caring for myself?
Yeah.
And, everyone laughs at me about my chai tea that I make every morning. And it's a bit of comfort for me. And you can weigh the pros and cons of caffeine. And I decided if I'm drinking a little caffeine right now and that's helping me function, then so be it for me right now and where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so we have to keep those things in mind. And so what other things, can we do when we're jumping into something new? We need to think about being grounded in things of comfort, and to recognize that.
So I'm not sure if what I'm kind of hearing is that we maybe in the out of the comfort zone, we need to keep pieces of the comfort zone with us to be able to stabilize that or balance that out with that.
Yeah,
is that kind of what
it speaks to the idea of self-care.
Yeah.
It's funny. So this is a fun story. So we did the whole pod thingy where they deliver a pod to your house, and then we pay for movers to come load the pods. So they can't guarantee a time. So you have the day that they drop the pods, and then the next day they load the pods, and then the next day they pick up the pods. So we had all these, we're trying to pack boxes up, but we needed, while we were living there, we need to be able to cook. So I didn't pack our main pots and pans that we were still using up until when we moved, and that I knew we'd want to use when we moved. So I put them in paper in a laundry basket. And then we moved, and I didn't remember that they were in a laundry basket. I knew they weren't like sealed shut in a box, but we had forgotten where they were, and we didn't find them until today. So we've now lived in this house for
a week, a little over a week.
Well, has it been that long? Anyways, I'm not sure. Because I had done that to have access to them. But I think in the process of you unloading the truck to get things out of the way, you would take in this laundry basket and put it up on the top shelf in the laundry room. And I had paper in between to protect them so you couldn't see what was in the basket. And there they were. And so I was, in my effort to have something accessible that I would need, it wound up not making it accessible.
We learned a lot off of this move.
And yet there were other things we did right. There were, I knew when we packed up, I kept sheets out and didn't pack them up so that when they did unload the stuff here, we'd be able to put sheets on the bed and towels. And I had change of clothes because we knew we were planning to stay at our parents for 3 nights. And I knew to pack extra just in case. And it wound up being a lot longer because they only dropped one pod on Friday and we had to wait till Monday. So we couldn't really get moved in till Tuesday versus Saturday. So I had extra clothing, and yet then I got like, oh no, I'm running out of underwear. So planning ahead for these types of things, and it's a skill that your children can learn with you. And when you're taking care of other people, having those things for yourself to keep yourself sane and can make a big difference.
And then, like saying, being aware of their anxiety coming out of their own comfort zones and recognizing it.
Right.
Too.
And recognizing, you know, like caring for someone, especially with dementia, the older we get, we tend to, I say, get a little more set in our ways. Just the familiarity of comfort of knowing where things are at. And then you add a little bit of confusion to that, and it adds extra stress on anybody. Every time you look away and stare at the cat, I lose my train of thought. So yeah, so like with my dad going to the hospital and watching other people that I work with dementia, it adds to their confusion. And if you have some degree of dementia, you can have increased confusion and agitation because of the changes. And you know, being in the hospital and then being in a facility and then even going back home again, as much as home is familiar, it's another change. And so we need to think about these things as we're caring for people, whether it's our children, a spouse, an aging loved one, or other parent, is looking at everybody's different stressors and what is comforting to them. Mm-hmm. And even though we don't understand why something's comforting to them, recognizing that and knowing that can help diminish their anxiety, which can help diminish our own anxiety and caring for others. So recognizing things, figuring out what comfort things are needed, but also seeing the beauty of growth in stepping out of your comfort zone.
Beautifully said.
Did I wrap that up pretty well?
Yes, you did.
Despite my brain feeling very scattered. And
so that's our podcast for today.
Yes.
We hope you've enjoyed it. We would love to hear from you. Would love to get comments about our topics if there's something you want to hear.
Or if you know of someone we could interview, or if you have a particular business that relates to parenting your children, your parents, yourselves. My good friend Helen,
Sandwich Generation,
does a whole thing on nutrition, and I'm looking forward to interviewing her in the near future. And check us out.
You're on Facebook, Focused Healthy Family. We're on Instagram. Our website, focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can find our podcast, our blog, all the information about our programs, all that stuff.
Our Tuesday tips, which are short, focused podcasts that can come via email. Also, we air them on Tuesdays on a particular topic.
And then every Thursday is this podcast.
Please share it. If you've enjoyed it, share it with other people. Give us some feedback so we can continue to grow this and grow this community as we're stepping into a new comfort zone. Thanks for joining us. And remember, how you speak to your children today shapes their future and yours.